Good morning and welcome to Qantas Flight QF342. We will be flying today from Melbourne to Sydney. I will be your captain today, Lumiere 18. We will be flying a fly-by-wire A320. We are sitting in cold, dark cockpit in the classic livery, which, by the way, is the classic Qantas Melbourne livery. So it's even got a little Melbourne crest and logo on the side there. Let's see if we can pop outside and have a quick glance. I love the look of this plane. So just giving you an indication very quickly, what we shall be doing today is we will be doing a startup and takeoff where we will be flying from Melbourne to Sydney. We will be chatting up until 10,000 feet, at which point we will part for a little while we kick to a bit of time lapse all the way into the beginning of our descent back down into Sydney, where we will have a bit of a chat. Might be a few things discussed otherwise along the way, but hopefully this is mainly the startup programming, setting up your flight plan, and some basic procedures. Who am I? I'm just been simming for a few years, bit of an aviation fan, not a pilot. I would call this a intermediate level of knowledge, so people who know very little, who are looking to learn, this is should prove quite helpful. People with moderate knowledge or have been flying in the sim who want to take it the next step, also worthwhile. If you're interested in a really deep dive, tip of the hat to our friend 320 Sim Pilot. If you visit his channel, is an actual Airbus pilot doing videos on simulating. So if you want the real deep dive, yeah, I ain't him. Right, now let's have a bit of a look. So as you can see, we've got the crest there on the side of the plane. No lights on in the cockpit at this point. Let's have a bit of a look around Melbourne, see what's going on. By the way, for those of you familiar with Melbourne Airport, this is actually, we're sitting at Gate 1. Just having a look down here, and in fact when you, perhaps let's have a bit of a contextual look. Let's just change the speed of our drone so we can get places quickly. There we go, we'll just pop up, dip it down and have a look. So that'll be looking out to the north. Here we go, we'll back up a bit. So those of you familiar with Melbourne Airport, this is not an enhanced scenery pack, so the scenery is quite good. It is based on altitude information from Open Maps. It's also based on satellite layout information and local architectural information, but it's not a building for building rebuild, so you'll notice this should be a Macca's. And of course we've got our short-term drop-off over here with our umbrellas. If we spin around, we'll be looking more towards Melbourne off that direction. There we go. So if we were to look when we enter the airport, here we are. This is normally where you go in, and if you go into the terminal, you've got two places to sit. One of those places is down here looking out over there, and there's another spot to look out looking over there. But if we come here and we have the nice view from inside the terminal, it will look almost exactly like, there's actually a little cafe restaurant right around here. Place to get a coffee, charge up your phones, etc. It's just nice to get some context. So if you've ever sat here and looked out over there, that's what that's all about. Looks like we've got another plane over there. Rightio. Let's get into the cockpit and start doing this. Okay, so we've got a dark cockpit. Let's get her warming up. So one of the first things that we basically need to do is to connect to auxiliary or external power. Bang! Get those batteries going. They were over 25.5, so we know they had sufficient voltage. And we still can't see anything, so over here is our dome light. You eventually get to know where that is. I believe there is a flashlight startup option where in the sim, I'm not sure if it's in the fly-by-wire, but where it shines a little torch so you can see what you're doing. Okay, we've gone through that, so let me just start going through my normal process rather than jabbering away, and I will talk while I do it. So a little brief explanation as we go. So okay, first of all, we need our we will always do our checklist from left, middle, far right panel. There's very little we need to do at this point on the far right panel, but first of all, we need crew oxygen. That's always handy, and one of the first things we do is turn on the ground voice recorder. Let's test our CVR. Sounds good, cockpit voice recorder. And now we turn on our inertial navigation system, or ADIRS. So those are our 3 gyroscope systems that need to calibrate so that they know where we actually are. I like to always turn on my strobes to auto at this point. Those are the flashing wingtip lights, which will activate as soon as our wheels leave the ground. Turn on our nav lights because we are here. I don't think we need to do much else here. If we go through here, we don't need to worry about anti-icing. Our doors, we will turn on our panel brightness. That's always good. And I actually get in the habit of turning down the temperature in the cabin, sit at about 20 degrees. So that's our pack conditioners, or conditioners throughout the cabin. Let's turn on our fuel pumps because that helps fuel flow somewhat. And just make sure that everything else is set up to auto there. And we'll do a very quick fire test. You want to push the test. Word of warning, if I was to actually come along and push the button, I would never be able to use that engine again until it's serviced or maintained, and I have nothing to do over here at this particular point. So that's all well and good. So we go to our next stage in the setup, where I do the top section here. I always like to default to my current barometric pressure. We can listen to Melbourne ATIS to get that information and then plug it into here. Or alternatively, just hit B. I actually have that as my standard procedure when I'm passing through here. So we've got our flight director. We have our constraints turned on so that it gives us altitude information, speeds, etc. We haven't set up our flight plan yet, so we'll have to come back to here later. Constraint info. Let's turn that panel up a bit. This has recently changed. It used to be very few clicks for massive changes. Now it's more graduated. There's actually an update fairly within the last few days. Seems to have not only changed that, but the audio sound effects seem substantially improved. I mean, they were great before, but they're just sounding so much closer to reality now, which I didn't know they were that far off until I'm hearing the improvement. Okay, so we're turning our lights on as we go along here. Now I believe it's also standard practice to turn on the terrain radar, or at least turn the setting on. At this point we won't be needing it around Melbourne because I pretty much have a good idea that we've got no obstacles to be concerned about. All of these are normal. We've got our brightness set there. Continuing to move down, I do actually like to turn on my ATC at this point. That should be on. We then have our TCAS system, which again, we'll turn that to all so we see all of our traffic, and again, all traffic, not just traffic threatening us. Floodlight, we'll got to turn that on. Got to turn that on a little bit. We'll come back to our radar system later. We won't actually turn our main radar on at this point because we don't want to saturate everybody inside the terminal with radiation, or electromagnetic radiation to be precise. Let's lock the door, cockpit door. We can even check the video back there if we wanted to, and make sure our rudder is centered. Just a small thing, I don't suggest you get out of the habit of checking this. The reason why, if you decide to refuel without ending the sim and continue a leg of a flight, often that will be left in the previous position. So you actually don't have it centered when you go to take off. Not a good situation. Just a little tidbit. Right, what else have we got here? Let me move my joystick around, or my control column would probably be a better choice of words. Right, how's it looking outside? You can tell the sun's starting to come up. This sim is just glorious. I can tell you it's a pretty cold morning because my feet are cold right now. Okay, so let's get the fly pad going. And I don't know why, but my zoom on my throttle is not working. Why is that? Why is that not working? If I can't zoom in on things, it's going to be very, very difficult. Let me just... No. Well, that ain't good. Okay, that's working. Let me just press a few buttons to see if I've disabled it somehow. And I can see no way that I've disabled it. So pardon me for a second, because I think I'm going to have to pop out and come over here. And I'm actually using a little scroll wheel over here, so how about I go search by input? Unzoom cockpit view, zoom cockpit view. Okay, that's selected. Don't know why it's not doing it now. Still not doing it. The only thing I can imagine, unfortunately I use trackballs, so the mouse wheel is difficult. Okay, well, we're going to try and do this without a zoom function on the view. I'm just randomly clicking buttons for the moment, see if I can get it going. No. Doesn't want a bar of it. Okay, well, let's see how I go through this stage. I'm going to have to do this rather than use the zoom function. Okay. Now, don't know if you do use any flight planning. I highly recommend it. One of the big reasons why is for accurate fuel. It means that you can land with the minimal weight. Makes landing far easier. And that means that you basically have the correct fuel for your flight. It means it allows for wind information. It pulls SimBrief in particular from Navigraph. There is a free just flight planning. However, if you want access to charts and all the extra information, there is a subscription service that I have needed to look further into. Very briefly, so we're doing Qantas Flight 342, Melbourne to Sydney. It's come up with the alternate as Canberra. There's a preloaded fly-by-wire A320 configuration. I've tweaked the fuel for accurate burn, given a few test flights, which basically means doing a long-haul flight as well. And when you land, comparing your estimated fuel remaining compared to actual fuel remaining, and we came up with that. Plus 23. You got your captain name there. Let's have auto Captain Courageous. Now, it by default will, I believe, give the active runways. It was actually giving me runway 25 for Sydney landing. It's usually runway 34L. I have changed it. Unless the weather conditions are unsuitable, I think we'll stick with 34L. We're departing out the north, which is it's usually a southerly departure out of Melbourne, but that'll be fine. So the wind is not blowing from its standard direction. And there is our flight with our alternate down there. So let's go ahead and generate our flight plan. Right. So while that is doing all that, one of the first things I do, there is a certain order or sequence for doing this. Hopefully I don't jump around too much. And it's basically data first, check your data sources, which I don't think you need to really worry about in the sim. Follow it, and let's go to the next page. Yeah, so we could actually look at what's under runways. Yeah, nothing. Stored waypoints, nav aids, I'm not going to change any of that. Secondary flight plan, which isn't even active at the moment. So okay, that's data. We then go to init. And in this case, the flight plan that we just generated, we can actually request that. You need to do it in this order. There is another way to import where that option just there vanishes. I had to discover that the hard way, and I don't know why it brings in the full flight number, QF342. It's actually the airline and flight, so I find that they read it out twice if you don't change that back. Okay, Melbourne to Sydney, there's my alternate. Cost index, or how much fuel consumption, how efficient it is. Flight level, geez, that's flying pretty high for such a short flight. But okay, there might be a reason for it. We'll go through the flight plan and find out. Our inertial reference system or navigation system, the gyroscopes, or lasers nowadays, I guess, have all aligned and they're all matching, so we're happy with that. If I was really pedantic and I did this for my fuel calculations, you can go into wind and temperatures and put in that information from your flight plan across multiple altitudes for the climb, the cruise, descent, and of course separately on the landing performance page. So we did data, we did init, now we go to flight plan. In which case, I am going up there, we choose departure, depart runway 34, so we're coming out the north, and we are using the docile. There we are, docile. Docile, actually I'll go ahead and select it. There we go, so there's our departure set. Okay, now arrival. I'll go ahead and set up the arrival. I was hoping for ILS 34L. And we are arriving via Rivet. Don't ask me what I just did. Yeah, okay. ILS 34L. Let's go ahead and select that, bang. And via Rivet, Rivet 3. Insert, there we go. So that's our flight plan. Now, the next part that we should be doing is the secondary flight plan, but it's not active, so we will just flight plan uplink. I'll one of these days have to dig into that. That will bring us to what is referred to as init B, or page 2 over here. In which case you put in your block fuel. So we can do that readily enough. At this point, I'm going to hop out for a moment and do something slightly different. Go to the AOC menu, and in it, all that's been imported already. Don't need to play with that at all. Weather. That I will need, so I'll send away a request for weather. Always worthwhile bearing in mind the bottom one's your alternate, not your destination. It's caught me out a few times, sadly. Performance, weight, and balances. This is the one. So load up the fuel. This will give us our exact fuel loads. So I should be able to go up here. 6145. There we are. What it doesn't seem to like to do, let's just test this. Payload 17768. Load. And it's done nothing over here. So we need to manually set that. Oof, close. I think we're looking for 56% at the moment. Is there, oh, this is so fiddly. What's 57? 18, well, I don't want to be over. 17.5. Yeah, okay, that's within a couple hundred kilos. One heavy set person, very heavy set person, or two people. So there we go. Boom, 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 boom. So back to init B. Actually, just before we do that, let's go to our received messages. And if we look over here, it tells us we actually got a company message because we sent away the report or the request. Go to the METAR info and print. Geez, it's getting light quick. There's the print coming out. So back to init B. Okay, so it wants our block fuel, and I can actually just go 6.1 right there. Or we can double check this, and this says 6.1, or we could look at our flight plan, which says 6.1. I reckon it's 6.1. Rightio, now we have our zero fuel weight and our center of gravity. Really important setting. Click and click again. Zero fuel weight, yeah, that's always good to know the weight of your aircraft. But center of gravity is 15.2, so we need to trim the aircraft so when we pull back on our control column, as opposed to our joystick, it's trimmed correctly so it lifts the nose up. So here we have, and I still can't zoom in, but center of gravity is 10.5 there, 20 there, so 15 will be sitting right around there. Now the zero marker is right about there, so that means that's where I want. The green area is the acceptable takeoff trim area. Now I choose that point because I'm looking at my center of gravity. That therefore is when it goes into my personal checklist. You may prefer to have it somewhere else, or you use the official checklists. Incidentally, I do suggest if you Google Airbus A320 normal procedures and abnormal procedures, it'll actually take you to the Airbus website, and you can download some PDFs which break it down, what they want you to be doing. Init B, so now we're up to our performance. So just as a reminder, we started with data, init A, flight plan, secondary flight plan, init B, performance. Now I'll take off using flaps 1, nice long runway. We're 420 feet roughly, that sort of area. Actually, let's have a look, see if it tells us. 400 and something feet, so don't need to worry about the air being too thin or anything. Flex temperature, I think I'll choose a nice moderate number, 35. Flex temperature, there is calculators online, combination of weight, trim settings, temperature, pressure, wind direction. the economy that you want to fly at, etc., or cost index you want to fly at. All those things come up with this number. 320 SimPilot says in brief summary, low number is low performance, high number high performance, so and high fuel consumption as well. He threw around numbers like 20 to 70 or 20 to 60 odd, so I've used that as a gauge, and rather than use a calculator, I just sort of self-assess, and in this case, what did I say, 35? We'll just plug that in for our flex temperature, which those more familiar with Boeing, reduced thrust takeoff would be another way of putting it. So, click, click, 131 knots, VR will be 132, and there we go. The next phase, clickety, 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 descent. Okay, approach ILS 34L. I'm going to assume that we might need to change that because it might not be active, and if the winds are too strong, which we'll find out in a few moments. 350 at 5 knots, that's not going to be a problem. In fact, I don't even know why they're using runway 25 in the flight plan. Our temperature is 11 degrees, not going to be foggy. We're well and truly away from our dew point. It was quite nice the other day. It was what, 6 and 6, so it was nice to see a fog rolling in across Sydney, and our air pressure is 1010, much higher than it was yesterday, which was about 990 something. Transition altitude in Australia consistently 10,000 feet, but we would otherwise hop across to our chart. I don't know exactly which chart. Is it the actual runway? I could probably afford to spend more time on these because I tend to have to scan to find what I'm looking for as opposed to just glancing at it, or using the wonderful TRAN. Okay, the word transition's not on there. Either way, I do know that as a rule of thumb, or if they start giving me specific pressures, then I can switch at that point. Okay. Yes, and down here, so this will basically have our missed approach procedure. Track 335, 500 feet, then turn left. That's really important because if you actually turn right, you turn across another runway. Departure. Here we are. Is this for ILS? 34. Yeah. Sorry, bear with me while I go through this. I just want to make sure I have relatively ILS 34L, page 1. That would explain why I couldn't find what I was looking for. Here we go. So using ILS Cat 1 or S1, my minima is 220, which is what I'm looking at. So basically my radio minima will be 220. In other words, that is my decision altitude before I have to bail. If I'm not in a stable approach, that's the point that I bail. Now that might actually have the transition info too. In fact, it probably does if I look, but I don't want to bore you to tears if you happen to be sitting here watching this, because it's not a real long flight. So Alternate alternate track go around procedure. This is important to make sure you're on the glide slope. Call out that when you're 9 miles out, it should be 2880. At 4.9 nautical miles out, should be at 1580 altitude. So nice double check compared to the instruments. I believe United Airlines, there was an investigation. It actually did exactly that. Took off from here, but then pulled off across there and nearly took out another plane going there. They didn't look at the procedures and did what they thought they knew. Interesting story, actually. Anyway, next phase, go around 1510 is where our nose dips down, our thrust increases, or speed increases, should I say. Thrust reduction from our takeoff thrust. And we are now all set up. So let's have a look at our flight plan itself. I can't zoom in. This is rather annoying. That goes to plan. And now what we can do is have a look. So that is, okay, directory, flight plan, or direct flight plan. So that's going up, up, Sally, Docile, Ebony, Aaron, Nonup, Cullen, Taral, Rivet. Now, I did actually do this yesterday and had a little bit of a challenge. What we actually wound up doing was diverting once we hit Rivet and coming straight over here instead of passing over the airport and then circling around. Nice little exercise for control of the flight management computer and adapting to changing scenarios, like let's say we were given a different runway. It's also a very good reminder that if you change course, you need to actually approach your activate your approach phase in here, because we were a little bit late in doing so yesterday. We still had a nice landing, but I had to scramble. So back up to arc. Let's reduce our range. Let's get those passengers boarding over here. I have not fully configured this as of yet since their recent upgrade, so you'll just have to, I'm sorry, bear with me on that. Let's get these passengers on. Get some catering in, and we all have baggage. Seems a bit noisy out here, does it not? Oh. Is there another plane? That may have... Was that brake cooling fans I was listening to? Could very well be. It's looking great. I would zoom in, but I can't, unfortunately, at the moment. Oh, actually, I might be able to do it. Nope. Okay. Look, while they're doing their thing, we may as well make our final steps in here. So basically, our speed will be managed. Our heading will be that of the runway. Auto throttle will kick in as we accelerate, and we will be going to, geez, I'll tell you what, that's a really high altitude, but anyway. For such a short flight. I mean, I could change it if I wanted to, but actually selected. Now, air traffic control I'm actually not going to be using. I've got my co-pilot set up to deal with it. Sometimes that can cause a wee issue every once in a while. Especially organizing the tug for pushback, because if she requests the tug and then I try to do it via the fly pad, there is a conflict and they become unsynchronized. But because of difficulties here and sometimes confusion to the air traffic control in the sim for the purposes of this flight, since I'll be chatting, I'm going to ignore it. Not a great real world procedure, that's for sure. Here we are, Jetstar Flight 944. pretty happy that the passengers are going to be loading in, so let's get them to start sitting down, shall we? Looks like our catering has been resolved. Now just waiting for the baggage. And if you'll pardon me, just for a brief second, I'm going to grab an actual coffee. Oh, and does that look like catering or luggage is done? It is indeed. Let's just lift up, have a bit of a look over here again. And if you don't mind, I'm going to go grab that coffee, and I'll just give you this view for just a few moments. As the man says, I'll be back. Well, I'm back. By the way, that was not intended with the Arnold Schwarzenegger thing that just flashed up there. I just happened to encounter a motivational speech that he did on YouTube, very short thing, which was interesting. I'm not really supportive of those motivational things, but when Arnie's talking about motivation, he's worth listening to, that's for sure. I think Bill Burr summed up his career best. Yes. Anyway, so moving on, I think we are now pretty much there. So what we shall do is disconnect our gate. And with that, we should arm our doors. Get our APU going. And let me go ahead and call the tug. This is where we get out of sorts usually with AI, air traffic control. And
Melbourne ground, Jetstar Niner 44 IFR to Cairns, ready to copy. Jetstar Niner 44 is cleared to Cairns Airport as filed. Take off runway 34, climb and maintain 10,000 feet. Departure frequency is 132.
I must admit, I love the exhaust coming out of that now. That was a really nice addition recently. Nothing like the little auxiliary power unit sitting back there. Actually, I'm not sure that they model the flap on this one. APU available. So let's get this pushback before my co-pilot requests it. And I know I should be seeking clearance already, but I'm trying to avoid these issues. Let's get my beacon on because I'm about to activate my engine, and let's get number 2 going. Shall we? Now's a great time to start turning.
Melbourne ground, Jetstar 9044 requesting pushback. Jetstar 9044 pushback request accepted.
Did I not have my bleed on? Whoops. There we go. That should be making a difference. Parking brake armed. And we have our engine coming up, 7. Let's have a closer look at that. That'll become available soon. We can see our set flex temperature. And while I haven't investigated it deeply, I'm going to guess that's actually percentage thrust being used. So 80%. It's not bad. 17, 18. This will, yep, available. Okay, let's get that second one going. And in the meantime, we shall arm our speed brakes, set to flaps 1. I'm not quite ready for a radar yet, weather radar, but we should definitely.
Jetstar 9044 request to end pushback received.
No steering. It's because this guy's still here. Boom, so our steering pin shall be returned. How long is it going to take? You can see it there. Nose wheel, steering, disconnect. Well, isn't that interesting? Nose wheel, steering, disconnect. Still shows. I don't think I can actually steer at the moment. Oh, there we go. Now it's vanished. Okay, gonna have to keep an eye on that. Pardon me, just a sip of coffee there.
Melbourne ground, Qantas 342 with India request taxi to the active departure to the north.
Wow, thank you. Let's get our turn lights on. Let's get our taxi light on.
Qantas 342 taxi to and hold short of runway 34 via taxiway Charlie Delta. Contact tower on 120.
Via let's just have a look at that. Taxi and hold short runway 34 via Charlie Delta. Now let me just.
Taxi to and hold short runway 34 using taxiway Charlie Delta Qantas 342.
So, if I'm here, I don't even see Charlie or Delta. Oh. There's Charlie. That's Alpha. Ah, there we go. Alpha. Charlie. It's got to be trying to take me up there. Even though I'm taking off runway 34. There should be no Delta anywhere even vaguely close. Please tell me I'm reading this chart wrong. Let's have a look again at exactly what they said. Taxi, using taxiway Charlie Delta. I'm here, I see no Charlie, I see no Delta, and this is the challenge. See, there's a Charlie there. Alpha Charlie Bravo. So I'm either misunderstanding or these charts are not 100% useful for the sim. and hence why I use my taxiway guides, because I do find that these are inconsistent. The runways are almost always dead accurate, but the taxiway naming system can sometimes be wildly off. And instead of a very quick flight, this is turning into something a little bit longer. Let's follow the Jetstar. Nothing like a bit of traffic, so let's turn off our parking brake. And ladies and gentlemen, we should also just let our cabin staff know. And let me just state, I don't like the Airbus ding anywhere as close. Wow, listen to that. Anywhere as close as I like that in the Boeing. But I've become a total Airbus convert, I must say. Their systems are pretty impressive. Okay, now I'm going to follow the arrows. They can actually, no, I'm going to follow that plane ahead. I don't know why it's trying to take me up a different taxiway. I should be able to get onto Alpha readily enough by following that. It's trying to take me around. Ah, it's the roundabout that's the problem. Is there any other traffic before I ignore it? Nope. So I'm just going to ignore it. Realizing that this is a license review decision if we were in the real world. Okay, 17 knots. This guy's going pretty slow, actually. Whoops. We'll just check our controls here. All the way left, all the way right, all the way back, all the way forward. And I'm sorry, but I use the twist axis for rudder because I can't use rudder pedals on my desk setup very well at all. I would like to know where that clicking is because I'm not pushing or denoting anything. Might be needing to calibrate the throttle quadrant. I might actually do that if I'm waiting. For departure, which I think I should be, considering we've got that 777 in front of us, was it? And we've got yet another plane in the process of landing. Although it's almost down now, so. Okay, yet another good time to turn on our clutter warning, multi-scan weather radar. Let's turn on our weather system and wind shear. It's funny, you even see the blue reflecting. Hang on, what are we doing here? Are we not on A? Are we? Let's have a look this way. I'll almost come to a complete halt because he's going pretty slow, and I can't even zoom in on this version either. How frustrating. I have to reconfigure that somehow. I said 777, but it's an obvious double-decker. Which makes it a 380. Now I apologize, my joystick is in the process of dying. I have increased the dead zone, so you may find a little bit excess wobbling, especially if you look at those pedals down there. I'll try and hide them. actually doing slow taxiing seems substantially easier on a single engine taxi. Which apparently is increasingly standard practice because it just keeps it's a little bit less fuel. A320s have a habit of running away apparently, even on zero throttle, as I've noticed in the sim, I gotta say. Plus noise, fumes, breathability, plenty of good reasons for it apparently. What have we got? UAE. Maybe it's a flight coming in to say how great we're doing on the Great Barrier Reef. Insert sarcasm. If you're not aware, they've just drawn a partnership, the Australian government, to seek support from Saudi Arabia and some other fossil fuel using country to say, Great Barrier Reef is doing perfectly fine, nothing to see, move along, other than tourist dollars. Lots of tourist dollars to see. I think I'm going to slow right the way up, but I should also probably kill this light. There we go, that's better. Look at that. Started rolling all on my own. Streams aren't even swollen. Rawhide? Sorry. Well, I must admit I like traffic. Need to get a new joystick. This one actually lasted me for surprisingly long. This is the Cytec X52 Pro, which I believe was later purchased by Logitech. Has served me extremely well. But the Spitfire, yes, that proved to wear the joystick fairly heavily. Made a world of difference with the audio. Even just one of those toggle switches, it sounds more metallic. I like it. They probably have clearance. Guess that's definitely the case. Runway 34 confirmed. I do like to try and confirm it on the runway indicators, and then as we actually enter the runway, to read it off the runway itself, just as a standard checklist. So there we go, 34, and I think we need to only have roughly one visible arrow before. There we go. As you see, we can run away, so park brake. Okay, they've exited the runway.
Hold short runway 34, Qantas 342.
By the way, Motivational Hub, Arnold Schwarzenegger. If you need a bit of inspiration, it's worthwhile having a listen to. It only goes about 5 minutes. He just summarizes. It's all about goal focused. You're not going to get anywhere if you don't know where you want to go. I've heard it many times before. I tend to agree, but boy, did he take it to an extreme. Mind you, that said, it sounds like at the age of something like 12 or something like that, he already knew, I want to go to the US and weightlifting is how I'm going to do it. But that wasn't enough. Had to become a movie star when he can hardly speak English. And if that wasn't enough, he's going to marry Kennedy. If that wasn't enough, become a politician. I mean, my God, what has the guy not done? Oh, sorry, gone back to acting afterwards. Impressive. Oh, yeah, we can definitely increase our engines, but park brakes are handy. Here we go. We got some traffic over here to the left. Why, oh, why are they giving us landing? Hey, I'm going to follow air traffic control.
Jetstar 944 contact Melbourne departure on 118.9.
I don't know actually where that indicator went. Yep. We're still going to be in problem territory. We're going to have a tailwind here too. Why am I not? And confirm 34.
Melbourne Tower velocity 13138 miles south inbound 4 DME runway 34 approach.
You better let us take off fairly quickly. There we go. There we go. Let the cabin staff know. And let's do that final takeoff configuration test. What is that last? Auto brake. Yes, good point. Bang. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, throttle nose down, up to around a third. Both are happy. Okay, all the way up to flex. There we go, we got the flex speed. Slowly bringing back to neutral joystick or control column. There we are, we're even now. V1 and pull back. We are. There we are. Positive rate of climb. Up to around 20. And let's bring those gear in. We are. Okay, I'm going to hit autopilot, and in 100 feet, there we are. No, start lowering, and it should ask us to go to climb mode. Bang, there we are. Climb mode it is, 100% full climb. Nose comes down, speed goes up, which means we're going to have to think about pulling in our slats soon. Nice departure. Go slats. Did I see? Ooh, what have we got here?
Melbourne approach Qantas 342 is Thai Airbus A320N 4 miles north of Melbourne, 3,200 feet. Request clearance.
This is where the zoom is nice. A little bit of traffic. It's over me at the moment. Slats in. Go, coming up to green dot speed in the not too distant future.
053 for Qantas 342.
Slats in. Continuing to 10,000 feet will be the next key stage. How was that? Okay, we're through the clouds, but I am concerned about the external temperature, plus 6 degrees. I think we should be able to get away with that pitot heat. Probably should have had it on through there. And that's looking all relatively good. About 9,400 feet. Still in the sterile cockpit in theory. Until now, in which case we can disable our APU as we pass 10,000 feet. We can turn our lights off, and our passengers can move about the cabin and play on their phones. There we go. Meantime, we go to standard pressure, and we'll make sure we continue climbing to 39,000 feet. Now, fairly soon I'll be leaving you. We're going to go to a time lapse, and I will come back as we approach. I will be occasionally checking our distance. Now, a couple of quick things here before I do that, and that is, let's go to our progress page, because don't forget, currently our course takes us to Sydney, and then we do the teardrop loop around to line up for 34L. We may not do that extra loop bit. We may divert and cut short if they tell us to just enter traffic from the left, in which case we don't want the full flight path. What we want is our distance to the airport, which is 362.7 nautical miles. Now, two quick things. First of all, rule of thumb. And I've been using this all the time to check everything, and it is consistently correct, and that is when do you descend? So let's say I'm at 39,000 feet. I look to be at 4,000 feet. That means I need to descend 35,000 feet. So 35, multiply it by 3. So that's 70, that's 105. So that means at 39,000 feet to descend down to 5,000 feet, I will begin at 105 nautical miles out. You can also use a calculator here on the fly pad to double check that. The numbers are very similar that it produces. So again, whatever altitude you need to drop, just in rounded numbers, so 35,000 feet rounded to 35 times 3 for a 3-degree descent. So 35, 70, 105. Ooh, we're a bit bumpy here. Do we want passengers wandering around? Let's have a look at the weather in a second before I let you go. The other thing worthwhile knowing for calculating descent rates, if you want to maintain a 3-degree angle, then basically look at your ground speed being 408 means I will need a descent of half that. So 2,000 feet per minute plus maybe 2,100 feet per minute would be my correct descent. So if I was doing 150 knots ground speed, which would be ridiculously slow, then I'm looking at around 700, 800 feet per minute descent rate for a 3-degree slope. And the other thing I always do at this point is, and probably should have done earlier, suck in my ground spoilers. Or disarm them, I should say. And there was one other thing I was going to show before departing, which would be escaping my mind. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go in here, currently 20,000 feet, so I always know what my distance is. We're going to hop out there. Lovely livery. That's where I was going to stay. Actually, did I just hear over talking? Horrible ATC. Unintentional, but it works. Okay, welcome back. So, here we are. We are currently 140 nautical miles from Sydney. We're doing 542 knots ground speed. We've got a strong tailwind. This might be a bit tricky to actually have a look at the calculator. Oh, there we go. So if we find that, we synchronize to our current altitude. Our target is 4,000 feet. It calculates 110 nautical miles. Whoa! What's happened? Something has happened. I think I accidentally hit a button, unfortunately. Whew. 4,000 feet, telling us 110 nautical miles. We should commence our descent. So, based on my calculations before, if we want to drop 35,000 feet times 3, that brings us 105 nautical miles. Now, we've got a really strong tailwind, so you should usually allow a little bit extra for that, and according to that, it says an extra 5 nautical miles. So ideally, at 110 nautical miles from Sydney Airport, we commence our descent. Should be our top of descent, and should leave us at an altitude of 4,000 feet as we hit or around about Sydney Airport, based on a 3-degree descent. Now, we start our descent a bit quicker than that, but we then need to level out at 10,000 feet to slow below 250 knots, and then resume our descent automatically, of course, with the system handling that. But that averages out our descent to roughly around a 3-degree descent, even though we start off steeper than that. 121, so getting close. Now at our top of descent, we have 4,000 kilos of fuel. We'll double check that after we commence our descent. Actually, if I'm really quick, .8 is the estimated fuel on board. So because of the strong tailwind, we're looking pretty good. Our fuel is fine. .111, that's close enough. So let's bring this down to 4,000 feet. Of course, if we had an instrument flight rule or IFR flight plan filed, we'd just wait until we're told to descend. Mind you, it is always worthwhile double checking the air traffic control, whether they're early or late, so you know what to expect. So we're starting our descent. At this point, as a matter of habit, the other thing I tend to do is to get an updated weather report. They usually estimate about 15 minutes before landing, that sort of area. You should. This is maybe a little bit above that, but I'll actually update the information based on what air traffic control tell me. We will need to request landing clearance because we didn't follow a flight plan. It's warmed up a little, slightly higher pressure, stronger wind, 290 at 11 knots. That's a fair crosswind for runway 34L. We'll see what happens. Again, sorry about all the flicking. I usually use my zoom feature a lot more. So we'll go to our performance. We are in descent mode, which is correct. And it was 10:11 for Sydney. Temperatures increased since the sun's come up. Might even be another degree by the time we get there. And 350 at 9 knots. Now, if if I actually go into my options
Going to 129er
and I look at my METAR source, it's actually set for Unreal Weather. Sorry, Medio Blue is currently selected, which is what Microsoft Flight Simulator apparently uses, so that should match air traffic control, but I've found it doesn't.
Melbourne Center. Continue to throw as planned.
30,000 feet. So let's call it 25,000 feet roughly, 75 nautical miles. So again, we're looking about dead on. Descending according to plan, which is nice. Now if we were to decide to come off over to here rather than doing the loop around, that would put us right around there at 5,000 feet. Might actually be a little bit on the high side by 1,000 feet. Yeah, maybe. So let's have a look. It actually wants us at 3,000 feet. So remember, I'm targeting 5,000 feet. So we'll have another couple of thousand feet to descend once we hit Sydney. Again, remembering the procedure for Mr. Go Around is to turn left. Missed approach, track to Sisech, and track 242. Climb to 3,000 feet. Absolutely beautiful country. I like to have the other labels up, mainly just to see who's around. It's nice to know who's player versus simulated craft or real world. Now our next critical phase is as we pass through 10,000 feet. Currently at 24,000 feet. Now, it's suggesting the constraints, which I don't believe are 100% accurate working in here, as reported by people who actually know what they're talking about. So, that's what, 14,000 feet away. Yeah, no, it'll still be well over 8,000 feet as we cross that. And then it goes up to 9, apparently. We're meant to be at 9,000 feet as we approach the airport, whereas I've got it set for 5. I think I'll stick with that for the moment. It's pretty bumpy, and in actual fact, because it is so bumpy, I think we can get the passengers to seat belts. Let them keep using their electronic devices, but we'll have to disable those soon. Is that the Hawkesbury River? And without the zoom, I can't change my map, unfortunately. I don't know why that disappeared. I'll do a system restart later on.
Melbourne Center, Swanton Street, 42. Request clearance to transition Charlie airspace.
Again, I'm just letting ATC do and the AI co-pilot do what they want. But fairly soon I'm going to have to step in and make contact with Sydney or Charles Kingsford Smith Airport. In fact, let's see if they're even on the list. They're still chatting.
Cleared for Charlie airspace, Swanton Street, 42.
I don't think I feel safe flying around Hazardous Joe. Don't ask me why. I don't know about you, but I find looking for the codes easier than reading. I wish they gave major airports first. Wait until we're a bit closer. So here we are. The airport should be sitting right around there. I think we will be going over, going out, and then coming back in. If we stick with the flight plan. 16, just passed through 17,000 feet. $14,500 feet. That wouldn't have been the Hawkesbury back there. Somewhere down there will be the new airport, I believe. Can't be too far from, I guess, Liverpool. Sorry, I don't know Sydney quite as well. Is that Parramatta down there meant to be in theory, or? 12,500 feet. Let's check our progress.
Sydney approach.
14 nautical miles from Sydney. Is that right? Yeah, that's correct. So if I've got another 6,000 feet, 12, 18 nautical miles until I'm at 5,000 feet. We should put it right around here. Go. We're almost at our target speed, so about to resume. Excellent. We just got clearance to land. Approach 10 miles south off to land. 34L. Ah, here we go. 29 QNH 2985. So. QNH 2985, that's 1011. And let's go about setting up our performance. Wind 277 at 19. As I said, it tends to prove different. There we go, finally. 277 at 19. Hello. I really prefer to be looking out the window right now. There we go. Next phase. Okay, leave it on performance. Okay, so our current phase, we're actually in our approach phase now. There we go. – 9,000 feet. We want to get down 4,000 feet, 12 nautical miles. That should put us at our correct altitude right there. And as we pass below 10,000, we should have turned on our landing lights. That's fine. We can do that now. We want all electronic devices off. They actually advise us to make left, so we're not actually following ATC instructions here, in which case we would have diverted, gone here, and then landed that way, if you follow me. But I'm going to continue our flight path. There we go. That's what we're going for. Begin looking at our speed management, probably around here. Found otherwise a tendency to deploy flaps too early means going dreadfully slow and burning through excessive fuel. off, and the Airbus is very smart at maintaining its current speed up until you deploy flaps. See, it's on the green dot speed now, even though its preferred speed is 132 knots for approach, because it's already activated the approach mode down here. And we've seen we don't need to do that. There was also a speed limit of 185 on the constraints we could have allowed for, in which case we could have gone up here and done that, but again, I'm ignoring that for the moment. It's a good thing it's a simulator. 5,000 feet, as I estimated. I think I estimated right about there. We'll be a little bit past, but not by much. Oz Dave. We wouldn't be in Australia, would we? And here we go. Just make sure I activated 3000, didn't just change it. Now, we should be capturing the glide slope just after 9.9 nautical miles. Okay, looks like we might have something. Oh no, that's just the indicator. So it looks like we don't need to worry about slotting into a traffic pattern. I'll just have a bit of a broader look. Okay, we do have something above us up here. Don't know which direction they're going. Looks like maybe, yeah, they're increasing altitude, so they're fine. 3,700 feet, so now we should probably turn on, if not even a tad earlier, our ILS system. There we are. Let's get those slats out and begin slowing. As you can see, we're still quite a long way away, so we've got a bit of way to slow down. I'm going to keep it here until we complete our turn. I could probably contemplate activating our approach mode at this point, but I'll wait until we come around the turn a bit more. Slowing to 140 knots out here would just be ridiculous. So I can do it this way, or I could manually maintain a speed here and then go back to manage speed when I'm ready. There's a couple of different ways to do it, I guess. Some traffic around there other than the players who don't normally seem to show up on the TCAS. They're right there, I think, unless that's a spot on my screen. Okay, next flap stage. I'll go approach once we pass that marker. Go ahead now, why not? Okay, we've currently got flaps 2. There's our other traffic right here. What's going on? Are they trying to... Whoop! Ah. No, it was traffic above me showing. Don't even see that one. Okay, we've got a strong crosswind, so... Did they just say 34 left velocity 819? Okay, so let's get our speed as far down as possible. Let's get our flaps all the way full. Does not look like they're setting up to land. No, maybe they are. Coming in for a late turn. I think we're going to have a go-around situation. Okay, we haven't hit the glide slope yet, but we're in that general direction. We're at the right altitude to hit it. What's this showing? The next waypoint, but if we have a look at our I really hope they get off the runway quickly. Progress page 11.3, 11.2. Remember, 9.9 is where we should capture it. Glide slope caught. Excellent. Not that it matters. Catch a touch on the early side. Now our next major altitude is 2,500 feet, where we drop our gear and go through our final checklist. Approaching 2,500. Let the staff know what's going on. Medium brake. Arm the brakes. Drop the gear. They are currently way too close ahead of us for my comfort. You notice our heading's offset because of the very strong crosswind. Actually, we can have a look here. 30 knots currently. Quite a bit off. Using a lot of rudder, actually. Let's have a look, see if we can find. Yeah, there's no way known that we're going. Oh, yep. 5-degree rudder. I hope they either have a go around. 267 at 17.
Clear to land runway tree. 4 left.
Okay, we should pass at 4.8. We should be at 1200. Yeah. Now, extremely windy conditions. I'm actually going to have Autoland do its job, assuming it can maintain. So we have Cat 3 dual, AP1 and 2 set. We're on the glide slope, we're on the localizer. Landing in the warning inhibitors on the way are activated. Just confirming gear down. A quick glance at those.
300. Minimum.
We're stable.
200.
Proceed. Land mode engaged.
100.
Okay, go around. Gear up. Let's pull in one set of flaps. Up to 3,000 feet. And back to climb for thrust. The left turn. My desired speed should be 185. Let's pull up another set of flaps. We'll leave it there. So, here we are. Yeah, wasn't quite right, but okay. Back to constraints. Let's head back. So we should be heading to 160 to run parallel with the runway. Okay, so let's have a look at our performance. All that.
42 with 267 at 17. Cleared to land runway 34 left.
So we're going to have to reactivate our approach phase. But first we need to make it.
Runway 34 left, Qantas 342.
Remembering capturing the glide slope, we needed to be 9.9, so we need to go out to there. If I was concerned about weather, I'd probably pull my flaps up a little bit more because I must be burning through some extra fuel. And if we have to do a go around again, it would probably be worthwhile looking at how much is required for our alternate. In fact, come back here to our fuel prediction. Fuel prediction. Flight plan. Okay, I think because I hadn't done that before, we will continue paying attention to flying. But if we come across over to our actual flight plan, look at estimated fuel to get to our alternate. It's 1700. Let's allow an extra 15 minutes flight time, so that means 2351 will be my minimum. And looks like I've got a little bit of time on my slave. It shows I'm coming under the glide slope there. So based on that, I'm going to bring us around to 70 degrees. I don't see any other traffic that we need to be paranoid about. But we should begin slowing. Go to our managed airspeed. And activate our approach phase, confirm that. Let's bring this around to 30. And kick in our approach mode. Both landing systems on, both auto approach on. There we are, we're turning. Caught the glide slope. Looks like we caught the localizer. We're all looking good again. sure our flaps are all the way out. Now, sticking with the glide slope, sticking with the localizer. 2,600 feet. Let's let them know. We're about to give it another go and get those gear down. That brake set. Is that armed? Armed. We're good to go. It's amazing how many times I've had to do go around Sydney and Melbourne. Very busy. I believe it's actually the busiest domestic route in the world. Wow. What do we got? 25, 26 million people? 2 main cities? Primary. Much bigger than the rest, I guess. Sorry to everyone else if that is wildly incorrect.
Sydney Tower Qantas 7702 ready for departure runway 34 left ISR to Melbourne.
We're looking good.
Qantas 7702 hold short runway 34 left. Traffic is Airbus A320 on final.
Don't know if you heard that, but it's another flight told to hold short, waiting for us on final. That's good.
Hold short runway 34 left Qantas 770.
4.8, we should be 1590. Yeah, I won't bother double checking that now because I'm quite comfortable with our descent.
1,000.
Would have been right, we just had the call out. Actually, I could have double checked over here. In combination with the distance here. But I don't have my zoom function, so it's a bit hard at the moment. Try it one more time. No, the zoom isn't doing anything. We've had landing warning inhibitions kick in case you're wondering what I'm... And my joystick just temporarily disconnected. Has it
500.
reconnected? Oh no, please. Don't tell me.
400.
I shall leave the auto landing system to do the job because I don't even know my joystick's
100
working.
above. 300.
The plug accidentally slipped out the back.
Minimum 200.
This is all looking very nice. Hey! Hey! Somebody just appeared there. I should be doing a go around,
40, 30,
but I'm not going to.
20. Retard. Retard. Retard.
Okay.
Retard. Retard. Retard.
My fault. Tad slow there on the reverse thrusters. Down to 70 knots, and yes, I've totally lost my joystick, unfortunately. Which means the only way I'm going to be able to clear the runway will be to exit. Which I will do right now. I would have liked to have taxied to the gate, but unforeseen problems. Otherwise, thank you for joining me. Hope you picked something up. Please feel free to leave comments below. Many thanks. Bye.